for pouring my boyfriend's raw milk down the drain because I found out it's dangerous. Hi Reddit, I'm really torn up about this and could use some outside perspective. I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend Jake, 28M, for about 3 years, and we've been living together for just over a year in a small apartment in a mid-sized city. For the most part, things have been great between us. He's sweet, funny, and we usually get along really well. But yesterday, I did something that's caused a huge rift, and now I'm questioning whether I was out of line. I poured out a bottle of raw milk he'd been drinking because I found out it's potentially dangerous, and he's super pissed at me. I thought I was doing the right thing, but he's acting like I crossed a major boundary, and now I'm wondering if I'm the asshole here. For context, I've been vegan for about 5 years now. It started in college after I took an environmental science class and learned about the impact of animal agriculture, and I've stuck with it ever since. Jake's never had an issue with it. He's not vegan himself, but he's always been supportive, even trying out vegan recipes with me and not making a big deal about my diet. He grew up on a small family farm a couple of hours from where we live now, and his family raised cows, chickens, and some crops. He's super proud of his roots and talks a lot about how real and natural farm life was compared to the processed stuff you get in cities. I've always found it kind of charming, even if I don't share his love for things like fresh butter or whatever. Anyway, about 6 months ago, I noticed Jake started buying this raw milk from a local farmer's market. It comes in these glass bottles, and I didn't think much of it at first because, well, I don't drink milk, so it's not like I was paying close attention. He'd mentioned once or twice that his family used to drink milk straight from their cows growing up, and he said it was the best thing ever because it was so fresh and didn't have that store-bought taste. I just nodded along like, cool, you do you. I figured it was just a nostalgia thing for him, and since I'm not eating or drinking it, it didn't really affect me. But then a couple of weeks ago I was cleaning out the fridge, which, side note, is always a mess because Jake just shoves stuff in there without organizing it. Drives me nuts. And I saw the label on one of his milk bottles. It literally said, "Not for human consumption," in bold letters. I was like, wait, what? Why is he drinking something that says that? I asked him about it casually, and he just laughed it off and said it's a legal thing. Raw milk isn't technically allowed to be sold for drinking in our state, so they slap that label on it to cover their butts, but it's perfectly safe if you trust the source. He said the farmer he buys from is super careful, and he's been drinking it for years without any issues, so I shouldn't worry. I don't know, something about that didn't sit right with me. I'm not a germaphobe or anything, but I'm also not naive about food safety. I've read enough about bacteria like E. coli from undercooked meat or whatever to know that you can't always just trust that something's safe. So, I started Googling raw milk out of curiosity, and holy crap, I wish I hadn't. I went down a rabbit hole of articles and studies about how unpasteurized milk can carry all kinds of nasty stuff. Salmonella, listeria, E. coli, even tuberculosis in rare cases. There was this one CDC page that said raw milk is one of the riskiest foods out there, and it can make you seriously sick or even kill you if the bacteria is bad enough. There was even a story about a kid who got hospitalized from drinking it. I'm not saying I believed every single thing I read, but it was enough to freak me out. I tried talking to Jake about it a few days later. I brought it up gently like, hey, I was reading about raw milk and it sounds kind of risky. Did you know it can have bacteria that pasteurization kills? He got kind of defensive right away, which surprised me because he's usually pretty chill. He said he's been drinking it his whole life and never got sick, and that pasteurization ruins the nutrients and makes milk taste like crap. He even pulled up some blog posts on his phone from these natural health websites that claimed raw milk is basically a superfood and the FDA is just scaremongering to protect big dairy companies. I didn't want to start a fight, so I dropped it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, what if he did get sick? Or what if he brought some of those bacteria into our kitchen and I got exposed, especially since we share countertops, dishes, and all that? I know that sounds a little paranoid, but I'm vegan partly because I'm careful about what I put in my body, so the idea of invisible bacteria floating around our apartment was stressing me out. Fast forward to yesterday. Jake was out at work. He's a mechanic, so he's gone most of the day. And I was home because I work remotely as a graphic designer. I opened the fridge to grab some almond milk for my coffee, and there was a fresh bottle of raw milk sitting there, front and center. I don't know what came over me, but seeing that bottle with the "not for human consumption" label just made my stomach churn. All I could think about was those articles I'd read, and I started imagining Jake getting violently ill or, worse, both of us ending up in the hospital because of some rogue bacteria. I know this sounds dramatic, but in the moment, it felt like a ticking time bomb in our fridge. So I made a snap decision. I grabbed the bottle, unscrewed the cap, and poured the whole thing down the sink. It was like a gallon, and it took forever, and the whole time I was second-guessing myself, but I kept thinking, this is for his safety, this is for our safety. I rinsed the bottle out, tossed it in the recycling, and cleaned the sink with bleach just to be safe. I didn't tell Jake right away because I figured I'd explain it when he got home, and maybe he'd understand once I laid out all the facts. Well, that was a mistake. When Jake got home around 6 p.m., he went straight to the fridge to grab a drink, and I could tell the exact moment he noticed the milk was gone. He opened the fridge door, stared for a second, then turned to me and said, "Babe, where's my milk?" His tone was already kind of sharp, like he knew something was up. I tried to stay calm and said, I poured it out. I was really worried about it after what I read about raw milk, and I didn't want you to get sick." I swear his face just changed. He looked so pissed, like I'd just thrown out his favorite childhood toy or something. He started going off about how that milk cost him $12, which I didn't even realize because, like, who pays that much for milk? He said he'd driven 20 minutes out of his way to get it from the farmer's market because it's the good stuff and not some watered-down grocery store garbage. He said I had no right to throw out something he paid for and that I was being a control freak by trying to dictate what he can eat or drink. I tried to explain that I was just scared for his health and that the label literally says it's not safe, but he cut me off and said I don't trust him to make his own decisions. He even brought up how he's never complained about my veganism or thrown out my food, which stung because I've never tried to control what he eats. I just didn't want him to get sick. The argument went on for probably 20 minutes, and it was so frustrating because he wouldn't even hear me out about the health risks. He kept saying, "I've been drinking this my whole life and I'm fine." Like that somehow proves it's safe. I tried to point out that just because he's been lucky so far doesn't mean it's risk-free. But he just rolled his eyes and said I was buying into government propaganda. At one point he even said, "If you're so worried about bacteria, maybe you should bleach the whole damn apartment," which felt like a low blow because I'm not some crazy clean freak. I just don't want us to get food poisoning. Eventually, he stormed off to our bedroom and barely talked to me for the rest of the night. He didn't even eat the dinner I made, vegan tacos, which he usually loves, and when I tried to text him later to check in, he just sent back a one-word reply. "Fine." This morning he left for work without saying much, and I can feel this huge distance between us. It's like he's holding a grudge, and I hate it because we usually talk through stuff like this. I've been replaying the whole thing in my head, and I'm starting to wonder if I overstepped. On one hand, I genuinely thought I was protecting him and myself by getting rid of the milk. I mean, the label says it's not for human consumption, and the research I did backed that up. I wasn't trying to be controlling. I was just scared. But on the other hand, I can see why he's upset. It was his property, and I didn't ask him first or give him a chance to explain why he thinks it's safe. I also didn't think about how much it cost or how much it means to him because of his farm background. I feel like such an idiot for not talking to him before I did it, but at the time it felt like the right call. I even called my best friend Sarah to get her take, and she was kind of on the fence. She said she gets why I was worried, but she also said it's kind of a dick move to throw out someone else's stuff without asking, especially if it's something they care about. She suggested I apologize and offer to replace the milk, but I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that because I still think it's dangerous. Plus, I don't even know if Jake would accept an apology right now. He's still so mad. I also thought about reaching out to Jake's sister, who still lives on their family farm, to see if she could back me up on the raw milk thing, but I'm worried that'll just make things worse. Like, what if she's all about raw milk too and thinks I'm some city girl trying to ruin their traditions? I've met his family a few times and they're nice, but they're definitely proud of their farm life, and I don't want to come off as disrespectful. So Reddit AITA for pouring out Jake's raw milk. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Should I have talked to him first? Is it controlling to get rid of something I think is dangerous, even if it's not mine? I just want things to go back to normal, but I don't know how to fix this without either giving in and letting him keep drinking something I think is risky or doubling down and making him feel like I don't trust him. Any advice on how to move forward would be super appreciated too. Thanks for reading this novel of a post. I know it's long, but I'm just so stressed about this.